Racist manager fires black employee. 5 minutes later, she becomes the new manager. In the corporate world, fortunes can change in an instant. For Emily Parker, that instant came when she was humiliated and fired by her manager, only to walk back into the same office just 3 minutes later, not as a terminated employee, but as the new department head. How could someone go from being fired to becoming the boss in mere minutes? And what shocking revelations would unfold in the aftermath of this unprecedented promotion? Let's stick around to find out. But before we dive into the story, comment below where you're watching from today. If you enjoy this tale, don't forget to subscribe. It was a typical Tuesday morning at Wilson & Associates when Emily Parker settled into her desk, unaware that her life was about to change dramatically. The office atmosphere felt different somehow, tenser, heavier than usual. Even the familiar hum of keyboards and coffee machines seemed muted, as if the very air was holding its breath. Emily had been with the company for 5 years, building a reputation for reliability and excellence. Her desk, neat and organized, reflected her methodical approach to work. As she reviewed her morning emails, she couldn't help but notice that Richard Thompson, her manager, was acting peculiarly. She had just finished responding to a client email when her phone buzzed, a message from HR requesting her immediate presence in Thompson's office. The walk to his office felt longer than usual. Each step echoed in the quiet hallway, and Emily could feel her colleagues' eyes following her progress. When she entered Thompson's office, the atmosphere hit her like a wall of ice. Thompson sat behind his desk, his expression unreadable, barely acknowledging her presence. "Sit down, Emily," he said, his voice carrying none of its usual warmth. Emily complied, her hands clasped tightly in her lap to hide their trembling. "I'll get straight to the point," Thompson continued, still not meeting her eyes. "We've been reviewing your performance, and we've decided to terminate your employment, effective immediately." The words hit Emily like a physical blow. I don't understand," she stammered, her mind racing. Her colleagues watched in uncomfortable silence, some pretending to work while stealing glances in her direction. She could hear whispers, but couldn't make out the words. Not that it mattered anymore. But fate had other plans. Just 3 minutes after leaving the building, as Emily sat in her car trying to process what had just happened, her phone rang. It was Carla Stevens from HR. "Emily? We need you to come back to the office immediately." Carla's voice was urgent but controlled. "I don't understand," Emily replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was just fired. Please, Emily. This is important. Come to my office directly." Confused and somewhat wary, Emily made her way back into the building. When she entered Carla's office, she found not just the HR manager, but also 2 members of the company's board. "Emily," Carla began, her expression serious but kind, "we owe you an explanation. The board has been conducting an internal investigation into Mr. Thompson's leadership practices. What happened this morning was unfortunate timing. We've decided to terminate his position effective immediately." Emily blinked, trying to process this information. "I don't understand." "We want you to take over as department manager," one of the board members said directly. "Your work record is exemplary, your leadership potential is clear, and quite frankly, we need someone who can restore trust and stability to the department." Emily sat there, speechless. In the span of 15 minutes, she had gone from being fired to being offered a promotion that would make her the head of the entire department. It was surreal, almost laughable, if it weren't so shocking. "This is unexpected," she finally managed to say. "We understand this is a lot to take in," Carla said softly, "but we believe you're the right person for this role. The question is, are you ready to take it on?" Emily took a deep breath, her mind racing with possibilities. This wasn't just a job offer. It was an opportunity to prove herself, to make real changes, to lead. Despite the shock and confusion of the morning's events, she felt a sudden clarity. "Yes," she said firmly, surprising herself with the confidence in her voice. "Yes, I'll do it." As she left Carla's office with her new contract in hand, Emily knew that nothing would ever be the same. The day had started with her world falling apart, but now she stood on the threshold of something new, something challenging and terrifying and exciting all at once. She was no longer just Emily Parker, the reliable employee. She was Emily Parker, department manager, and she had a lot of work to do. The real challenge was just beginning. The following Monday morning, Emily arrived at the office an hour earlier than usual. The weight of her new responsibilities pressed heavily on her shoulders as she unlocked the door to what had been Thompson's office, her office now. The nameplate hadn't been changed yet, a stark reminder of how sudden this transition had been. Rachel Anderson, a senior team member who had been Thompson's right hand, made her disapproval particularly clear. During the morning team meeting, her body language screamed resistance. Arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin line, challenging every suggestion Emily made. With all due respect, Rachel's voice dripped with sarcasm during the meeting. But how exactly do you plan to manage this department when you've never held a leadership position before? The room fell silent. Emily felt all eyes on her, waiting to see how she would handle this direct challenge to her authority. Taking a deep breath, she met Rachel's gaze steadily. "That's a fair question, Rachel," Emily replied calmly. "I may be new to this position, but I'm not new to this team or our work. I believe in open communication and collaborative leadership. I'd like to meet with each of you individually this week to hear your thoughts and concerns." Sarah Miller, another veteran team member, scoffed quietly. "That's what Thompson always said too." Emily felt her confidence waver but pressed on. "I understand your skepticism. Actions speak louder than words, and I intend to prove myself through my actions, not just promises." The first week was a baptism by fire. Emily faced resistance at every turn. Projects that had run smoothly before suddenly developed complications. Information seemed to move at a glacial pace, and some team members appeared to be deliberately withholding crucial details. But Emily refused to be deterred. She stayed late each night, meticulously reviewing processes and procedures. She made herself available to anyone who wanted to talk, maintained a calm demeanor in the face of passive-aggressive behavior, and consistently demonstrated her commitment to transparency. The turning point came unexpectedly, through Rachel Anderson of all people. Late one evening, as Emily was reviewing some old files, Rachel burst into her office, clutching a stack of documents. Her face was flushed, and her hands were shaking. "You need to see this," Rachel said, dropping the files on Emily's desk. "I've been going through Thompson's old records, trying to prove you weren't qualified for this position, but instead, I found these." The documents revealed a pattern of financial misconduct under Thompson's leadership. He had been manipulating numbers, taking credit for others' work, and worse, deliberately suppressing the advancement of talented team members who might threaten his position. "There's more," Rachel continued, her voice quieter now. "He was planning to lay off half the department next month, including me and Sarah. He'd already started interviewing replacements." Emily sat back, stunned by the revelations. "Why are you showing me this?" Rachel's expression softened for the first time since Emily's promotion. "Because I was wrong about you. I've watched you this past week. Despite how we've treated you, you've remained professional and focused on what's best for the team. You're nothing like Thompson." That night marked a significant shift. Rachel, who had been Emily's strongest opponent, became her most vocal supporter. The next morning, Rachel publicly apologized for her behavior and shared some of what she discovered about Thompson with the team. Sarah Miller, watching this transformation, began to thaw as well. Others followed suit, and gradually, the atmosphere in the office began to change. The whispers turned from skeptical to supportive, and the resistance began to fade. As Emily left the office that Friday, she felt a glimmer of hope. The path ahead was still challenging, but she had gained something invaluable, the beginning of trust. She had learned her first crucial lesson in leadership. Sometimes the strongest allies come from the most unexpected places. Looking at her reflection in her office window, Emily smiled. The nameplate had finally been changed to Emily Parker, department manager. It wasn't just a title anymore. She was beginning to feel like she truly deserved it. But as she would soon discover, earning the team's trust was just the first of many challenges she would face in her new role. The real test of her leadership was yet to come. With Rachel's support and the team's growing acceptance, Emily knew it was time to implement the changes she had been carefully planning. The morning began with a department-wide meeting, where Emily stood before her team with a new sense of confidence. "I know these past few weeks have been challenging," she began, scanning the faces before her. "But today marks the beginning of real change. We're going to rebuild this department from the ground up, starting with how we communicate and work together." Emily unveiled her new management system, which emphasized transparency and collaboration. Gone were Thompson's closed-door policies and hierarchical decision-making processes. In their place, she introduced weekly team check-ins, an open-door policy, and a digital project management system that made everyone's contributions visible. From now on, Emily explained, every voice matters. Every idea will be heard. The changes weren't met with immediate enthusiasm. Sarah Miller raised her hand, skepticism evident in her voice. "This all sounds great in theory, but how do we know this won't just create chaos?" "Fair question," Emily responded. "Which is why we're going to implement these changes gradually, with regular feedback sessions. This isn't about dismantling structure, it's about creating a better one." Instead of imposing a solution, she brought Mike and Jennifer into her office and facilitated a discussion that allowed them to resolve their differences themselves. The result was a new collaborative approach that actually improved project efficiency. The real breakthrough came unexpectedly through Tom Wilson, the quiet IT specialist who rarely spoke up in meetings. One afternoon, he requested an urgent private meeting with Emily. "I've been doing some routine system maintenance," Tom began, his voice unusually serious. "And I found something in the archived servers that you need to see." What Tom had discovered was staggering. Hidden in encrypted files were emails and documents revealing the full extent of Thompson's misconduct. Beyond the financial manipulation Rachel had found, there was evidence of systematic harassment, deliberate sabotage of promising employees' careers, and even corporate espionage. "He was selling our project plans to competitors," Tom explained, showing Emily the evidence. "And that's not all. He had created a complex system of fake performance reviews to justify his decisions about promotions and terminations." The revelation hit Emily like a thunderbolt. "This explains so much about the department's dysfunction," she murmured. After consulting with HR and the board, Emily made the difficult decision to share a carefully curated version of these findings with the team. The meeting was emotional, as people began to understand how Thompson's actions had affected their careers and relationships. "I always wondered why my promotion was denied last year," Jennifer said quietly. "Now I know it wasn't because I wasn't good enough." The atmosphere in the office transformed after that day. The team's resistance to change melted away as they realized just how necessary it was. Emily's new systems weren't just changes for change's sake. They were essential repairs to a broken department. Rachel, who had been working closely with Emily, addressed the team. "I know I was one of the biggest skeptics," she admitted. "But now I see that what Emily is doing isn't just about new management. It's about healing our workplace." As trust grew, so did productivity. The new project management system revealed hidden talents within the team. Sarah Miller, despite her initial skepticism, proved to be an excellent coordinator under the new structure. Mike and Jennifer, after resolving their conflict, formed a powerful collaborative partnership. Emily ended the month by introducing one final change, a weekly innovation meeting where anyone could present ideas for improving the department. The first session was tentative, but by the third week, the conference room was buzzing with energy and ideas. Looking at her team engaged in passionate discussion about a new project proposal, Emily felt a surge of pride. They weren't just adapting to change, they were embracing it, making it their own. But as she would soon discover, the true test of their newfound unity was just around the corner. A crisis was brewing that would challenge everything they had built together. The crisis struck without warning on a seemingly ordinary Thursday morning. Emily was reviewing the weekly progress reports when Rachel burst into her office, face pale with concern. "The Henderson Project," Rachel said, her voice trembling. "There's been a massive data corruption in the main servers. We've lost 3 months of work, and the client presentation is due in 5 days." The Henderson Project was their biggest account, worth millions to the company. Losing it would be catastrophic, not just for the department but for the entire firm. Emily immediately called an emergency team meeting. The room erupted in panic. "That's impossible," someone shouted. "We can't possibly meet that deadline." Sarah Miller stood up, her face ashen. "This is my fault," she announced. "I was the project lead. I should have ensured we had better backups." She placed a folder on the table. "This is my resignation letter." The room fell silent. Emily studied Sarah's face, seeing not just guilt but fear and exhaustion. In that moment, she made a decision that would define her leadership. "I'm not accepting your resignation, Sarah," Emily said firmly. "We need you. More importantly, we need to stop wasting time on blame and start focusing on solutions." Emily divided the team into specialized task forces, each focusing on different aspects of the project. She converted the main conference room into a command center, with progress boards covering the walls. The team would work in shifts around the clock. "I know I'm asking for a lot," Emily addressed the team, "but I believe in us. We're stronger together than we ever were apart." The next 3 days were intense. The office became a second home, with team members catching naps on office couches between shifts. Emily worked alongside her team, ordering meals, providing support, and solving problems as they arose. But on day 4, disaster struck again. "Because in all the years I've worked here, I've never seen anyone with your level of dedication and attention to detail. We don't need you to be strong right now. We need you to be you." As they talked, Sarah mentioned something about an old project methodology she'd once used. Emily's eyes widened as an idea began to form. "Sarah, that's it," Emily exclaimed. "We've been trying to recreate the project the same way, but what if we used your old methodology? It could cut our workload in half." The next few hours were a flurry of activity as the team reorganized around Sarah's methodology. What had seemed impossible suddenly became manageable. Team members who had been working in isolation found new ways to collaborate, building on each other's strengths. Tom's technical expertise combined with Jennifer's creative approach led to innovative solutions. Rachel's organizational skills helped streamline the new process. Even the newest team members found ways to contribute meaningfully. The night before the deadline, as the team put the finishing touches on the presentation, Emily looked around the room. Despite the exhaustion, there was a sense of pride and accomplishment in every face. They had done the impossible, together. The client presentation went better than anyone could have hoped. The Henderson representatives were not only satisfied but impressed by the innovative approach the team had taken. In the celebration that followed, Sarah approached Emily. "I understand now," she said quietly, "what you've been trying to build here. It's not just about systems and processes. It's about trust and believing in each other." Emily smiled, watching her team celebrate together. The crisis had tested them, but it had also transformed them. They were no longer just colleagues working in the same office. They had become a true team, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. But as Emily would soon discover, their greatest triumph would also bring unexpected complications, as news of their success reached far beyond the confines of their office. The success of the Henderson project marked a turning point for the department. Word of their remarkable achievement spread throughout the company, and suddenly, Emily's team found themselves in the spotlight. 1 month after the crisis, the department's performance metrics showed unprecedented improvement. Projects were being completed not just on time but ahead of schedule. Client satisfaction scores had risen by 40%, and employee satisfaction surveys showed a complete turnaround from the Thompson era. During a morning meeting, Emily couldn't help but smile as she watched her team in action. Rachel and Sarah, once adversaries, were now co-leading a major initiative. Tom had emerged from his shell, confidently presenting innovative technical solutions. The transformation was remarkable. "We've received requests from 3 other departments wanting to implement our project management system," Emily announced to the team. "The board has officially recognized us as the company's model department." The atmosphere in the office had transformed completely. Gone was the tension and mistrust that had characterized Thompson's leadership. In its place was a collaborative spirit that seemed to energize everyone who stepped into the department. Emily organized a team-building retreat, something that would have been unthinkable months ago. During the weekend event, she watched as her team participated in activities with genuine enthusiasm rather than the reluctant compliance she'd witnessed in previous company events. "You know what's different?" "Emily," he said, extending his hand with a forced smile. "Looking forward to working together." The tension in the office was palpable. Thompson's presence threatened to undermine everything they had built. Some team members were visibly uncomfortable, while others seemed angry at his return. During his first week back, Thompson attempted to assert his influence in subtle ways. He questioned decisions in meetings, made suggestions that would revert to his old methods, and tried to build alliances with newer team members who hadn't experienced his previous leadership. But Emily's team surprised her. Instead of fracturing under the pressure, they became even more unified. When Thompson criticized a new process during a meeting, the entire team defended it with data and results. When he tried to schedule private meetings with team members, they insisted on keeping everything transparent and group-oriented. The defining moment came during a project review when Thompson attempted to take credit for one of the team's recent successes. Before Emily could respond, Sarah stood up. "With all due respect, Mr. Thompson," she said firmly, "this success came from Emily's leadership and our team's hard work. We're not going back to the old ways." The rest of the team nodded in agreement. Thompson, for once, was speechless. That evening, Emily found a note on her desk from Rachel. "Some people lead through fear and control. You lead through trust and empowerment. That's why we stand with you." Emily realized that Thompson's return, rather than destroying their progress, had actually strengthened it. 6 months after Thompson's return, Emily's department had become the crown jewel of Wilson & Associates. Their success story was featured in the company newsletter, and other organizations were reaching out to learn about their management practices. The morning started like any other, with Emily enjoying the warm buzz of productive activity throughout the office. The walls, once bare, now displayed team achievements and project milestones. The break room buzzed with friendly conversation, and even Thompson had gradually found his place within the new dynamic, though in a much humbler capacity than before. "Emily," Carla called from the doorway. "The board would like to see you." In the boardroom, Emily found herself facing not just the company's board of directors, but also the CEO of their parent company, James Morrison. "Emily," Morrison began, "what you've achieved with your department is extraordinary. We've been watching your progress closely, and an opportunity has arisen that we believe would be perfect for you." The offer was beyond anything Emily had imagined. Chief Operations Officer of the parent company's European division, based in London. It meant overseeing operations across 12 countries, a substantial salary increase, and significant career advancement. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity," Morrison explained. "We need someone with your leadership skills to transform our European operations the way you transformed your department here." Emily felt her heart race. This was the kind of opportunity most executives would kill for. Yet, as she left the boardroom with a promise to consider the offer, she felt an unexpected heaviness in her chest. Back in her department, she watched her team in action. Sarah and Rachel were mentoring new employees, implementing the collaborative practices that had become their hallmark. Tom was leading an innovative tech project that could revolutionize their workflow. The atmosphere was electric with creativity and mutual support. During the afternoon team meeting, as Emily listened to her team enthusiastically discussing future projects, the weight of her decision became even more apparent. These weren't just employees anymore. They were family. Later that day, Jennifer knocked on her office door. "We can tell something's on your mind," she said softly. "The whole team can feel it." Emily shared the news about the promotion. The word spread quickly, and by the end of the day, her entire team had gathered in the conference room, uninvited but united. "We heard about London," Sarah began, speaking for the group. "And while we'd miss you terribly, we want you to know that what you've built here won't crumble if you leave. You taught us how to stand on our own." Rachel added, "You showed us what real leadership looks like. Whatever you decide, your impact here will never be forgotten." That evening, as Emily sat alone in her office contemplating her decision, she reflected on her journey. She thought about that morning months ago when Thompson had fired her, about the crisis that had united them, about the countless small moments that had transformed a group of individuals into a family. The London position offered prestige, power, and financial security. It was the logical next step in her career. But as she looked out at her empty department, she couldn't help but wonder if logic alone should drive such a crucial decision. On her desk lay 2 envelopes, one containing her acceptance of the London position, the other her decision to stay. Both represented valid choices. Both promised different kinds of fulfillment. Emily picked up her pen, looking at both envelopes. In one direction lay global influence and personal advancement. In the other, the chance to continue building something special with people she had grown to love and respect. As the sun set over the city skyline, Emily made her decision. She reached for one of the envelopes, her hands steady and her heart at peace. But which envelope she chose, and where her path would lead, would be a story for another day. What mattered was that she had already achieved something remarkable. She had shown that true leadership isn't about position or power, but about building trust, fostering growth, and creating a community where everyone can thrive. The office lay quiet now, but tomorrow it would again buzz with energy, ideas, and collaboration. And somewhere in the city, Emily Parker smiled, knowing that whatever choice she made, she had already succeeded in the most important way possible. She had transformed not just a department, but the lives of everyone in it, including her own.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can keep bringing you the best stories.